For 3 millennia, Earth had been a name whispered in the dark corners of history. A cautionary tale. A planet obliterated by the Galactic Council in what they called a necessary act of preservation. Official records painted Earth as a dangerous anomaly, its inhabitants reckless and aggressive, a species too stubborn and unpredictable to coexist peacefully within the galactic order. And so, with a decisive vote and an unforgiving display of power, Earth was turned to ash. Or so they thought. In the vast, cold expanse of the galaxy, humanity's memory smoldered like a dying ember hidden, but not extinguished. Scattered survivors of Earth's destruction had fled into the void, their numbers small, their spirits unbroken. For centuries, they clung to life in secret, adapting to hostile environments, mastering forgotten technologies, and preserving the one thing no cosmic tribunal could erase, their will to endure. By the time humanity re-emerged, they were no longer the scattered refugees the Council had dismissed. They were something new, hardened, unified, and now they were ready to reclaim their place among the stars. But this time, they weren't seeking peace. They were seeking justice, or, as some whispered, revenge. The story begins on the edges of known space, in a silent, forgotten sector that even the most daring smugglers avoided. A lone ship drifted through the darkness, its black hull absorbing starlight, rendering it invisible to all but the most advanced scanners. Inside, the air was tense. The crew, a mix of engineers, pilots, and tactical experts, were descendants of Earth, carrying the weight of generations who had lived with loss, anger, and purpose. Their mission wasn't one of discovery, it was one of reckoning. They were en route to a Galactic Council outpost, one of many that had sprung up across the galaxy in the centuries since Earth's fall. This outpost wasn't particularly significant, but it had something the humans needed: access to Council networks, and the location of a weapon that could tip the balance in their favor. The ship's captain, a figure known more by their reputation than their name, stood on the bridge, their eyes fixed on the distant pinpricks of light. The crew didn't speak much, but when they did, every word carried weight. Each of them knew the risks. Council still ruled the galaxy with an iron grip, its fleets unmatched and its reach seemingly endless. To defy them openly was suicide. To strike from the shadows, however, offered a chance, however slim, to rewrite history. As the ship approached the outpost, the crew's preparations intensified. Engineers checked the cloaking systems, ensuring they wouldn't fail at a critical moment. Tactical officers ran simulations, anticipating every possible response from the outpost's defenses. The mood was somber but resolute. They weren't just fighting for themselves. They were fighting for the billions who had perished, their voices silenced but their legacy alive in the hearts of those who remained. And yet, beneath the determination, there was fear. Not of death, that was a risk they had all accepted, but of failure. They knew the Council wouldn't hesitate to make an example of them if they were caught. A single mistake could doom not just their mission, but humanity's fragile resurgence. As the ship drew closer to its target, the captain gave the order to cut all non-essential systems. The ship went dark, gliding silently through the void like a predator stalking its prey. The outpost loomed ahead, a sprawling structure of metal and light suspended in the darkness. It was heavily fortified, its defenses designed to repel the most determined attackers. But the crew wasn't planning a frontal assault. They had something more subtle in mind. The plan was simple in theory, but perilous in execution. Infiltrate the outpost, extract the data, and disappear before anyone noticed. Every detail had been meticulously planned, every contingency accounted for, or so they hoped. As the boarding team suited up, there was a palpable sense of finality. They knew this might be a one-way trip. The boarding craft detached from the main ship, its engines whisper quiet. It maneuvered toward a maintenance hatch, its crew holding their breath as they bypassed the outpost's security systems. The hatch opened with a soft hiss, and the team slipped inside, moving with practiced precision. They avoided main corridors, sticking to shadows and blind spots, their movements guided by years of training and an intimate knowledge of the Council's protocols. The outpost's interior was a stark contrast to the silent void outside. It was alive, with activity, its corridors bustling with personnel and its systems humming with energy. The humans moved like ghosts, their presence unnoticed as they made their way toward the central data core. Every step was a gamble, every corner a potential trap. At last, they reached their destination. The data core was a towering structure, its surface pulsing with light as streams of information flowed through it. The team's hacker went to work, their hands moving with lightning speed as they breached the system's defenses. Minutes felt like hours as they searched for the information they needed, their tension mounting with each passing second. Finally, the hacker found it, a file buried deep within the Council's archives. It contained coordinates, a location known only to the highest-ranking members of the Council. The team didn't know what they would find there, but they knew it was important. Perhaps it was the weapon they sought. Perhaps it was something even more valuable. But before they could celebrate, an alarm blared. Their presence had been detected. The outpost erupted into chaos. Security forces mobilized, their boots pounding against the metal floors as they converged on the intruder's location. The humans fought their way back to their ship, their movements a blend of desperation and discipline. They took losses, but they didn't falter. Their mission came first. As the boarding craft docked with the main ship, the crew knew they had seconds to escape. The captain barked orders, and the ship's engines roared to life. It shot away from the outpost, dodging a hail of fire as it disappeared into the void. But the danger wasn't over. The Council wouldn't let them go so easily. As the crew plotted their next move, a sense of foreboding settled over them. They had taken a step toward their goal, but they had also painted a target on their backs. The galaxy was vast, but there was nowhere they could truly hide. And as the captain stared out into the darkness, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Something was out there, something ancient and powerful, waiting for the right moment to strike. The humans had returned, but they were far from safe. The galaxy was about to remember why it had feared them. The silence on the ship was heavier than before. The crew moved with a quiet efficiency, tending to the wounded and running diagnostics on the damage sustained during their escape. Despite their small victory, the weight of what they had just done hung in the air. They had taken something the Galactic Council would never forgive them for: secrets. And the Council protected its secrets with a ferocity that rivaled its grip on the galaxy. The captain sat alone in the dimly lit briefing room, the stolen coordinates flickering on a holodisplay before them. They studied the data with a grim expression, their thoughts racing. The file wasn't labeled, but the encryption surrounding it spoke volumes. Whatever this location was, it wasn't just important, it was critical. The Council wouldn't have buried it so deep otherwise. But that raised a question that gnawed at the captain's mind. Why? They couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this than they had anticipated. For years, the Council had treated humanity like an afterthought, a loose end tied up long ago. Yet here they were, with evidence suggesting that the Council had kept something hidden. something that might explain why they had destroyed Earth with such finality. In the galley, the rest of the crew gathered to regroup. The atmosphere was tense but alive with a sense of unity. These people weren't just fighters, they were survivors. Each one had their reasons for being there. For some, it was personal family, lost in the destruction of Earth, a grudge nurtured through generations. For others, it was about something larger, proving that humanity couldn't be erased, that their story wasn't over. One of the engineers, a wiry figure with sharp eyes and grease-stained hands, broke the silence. "So, we've got the coordinates. What's next? Are we walking into a trap?" The hacker, still pale from the intensity of the infiltration, looked up. "It's possible. But if it's a trap, it's an old one. The data was last accessed over 200 years ago. Whatever's out there, the Council didn't want anyone finding it, not even themselves." Another voice cut through the room, calmer and steadier. It belonged to the tactical officer, someone who had seen enough battles to recognize the odds they were facing. "The Council will be hunting us now. We can't just jump blindly into this. We need to figure out what we're dealing with before we make our move." The group turned to the captain as they entered the room, their presence commanding attention without a word. "We don't have the luxury of time," the captain said, their voice firm but measured. "The Council already knows we were there. Every moment we delay gives them a chance to close in. Whatever's at these coordinates, it's worth the risk. If it wasn't, they wouldn't have gone to such lengths to bury it." The crew exchanged glances, their doubts clear but unspoken. Trust was a fragile thing, but in this moment, they had no choice but to rely on each other. The captain continued, their tone softening just enough to cut through the tension. "I know what's at stake. I know what we're up against. But this could change everything. For all of us." The room fell silent. No one needed to ask what they were fighting for. It was etched into their bones, their very existence. They had spent their entire lives in the shadow of Earth's destruction, and now, for the first time, they had a chance to fight back. Not with brute force, but with knowledge. As the ship set course for the coordinates, the crew busied themselves with preparations. Engineers reinforced the hull, patching up the damage from their escape. The tactical team ran drills, refining their response to any scenario that might unfold. The hacker pored over stolen data, searching for anything they might have missed. The captain remained on the bridge, their eyes fixed on the stars ahead. Days passed in relative calm, but it was the kind of calm that carried an undercurrent of dread. The crew spoke in hushed tones, their conversations filled with speculation about what they might find. Some hoped for a weapon, something powerful enough to level the playing field against the Council. Others feared it might be something far worse, a relic of humanity's past that should have stayed buried. The closer they got to the coordinates, the more the tension grew. The location was in a region of space that had been marked as uncharted for centuries. Even the most detailed star maps showed nothing but an empty void. That, more than anything, unsettled the crew. If the Council had gone to such lengths to hide this place, it had to be for a reason. When they finally arrived, the sight that greeted them was both awe-inspiring and chilling. The coordinates led to a massive structure, floating in the darkness like a tomb. It was ancient, its surface covered in scars from battles long forgotten. It didn't resemble any known architecture, human or otherwise. The ship's scanners struggled to make sense of it, the readings flickering with interference. Captain ordered the ship to maintain a safe distance as they assessed the situation. The crew gathered on the bridge, staring at the structure on the holo display. "What is it?" one of them whispered. The hacker shook their head, their expression unreadable. It's not on any database. Whatever this is, it's older than the Council. Maybe older than humanity itself. The captain's gaze remained fixed on the structure. Prepare the boarding team, they said, their voice steady despite the unease in the room. We didn't come this far to turn back. The boarding craft was prepped and launched, carrying a small team toward the structure. The closer they got, the more apparent its scale became. It was massive, stretching out in every direction, its surface marked by strange symbols and patterns that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. The team's comms were filled with static, the interference growing stronger as they approached. When they finally docked, the silence was deafening. The interior was dark, the only light coming from the team's suits. The air was thin but breathable, suggesting the structure had some form of environmental system still functioning after all this time. The walls were smooth and cold, their surface reflecting faint, ghostly images that disappeared when touched. As they ventured deeper, the team's unease grew. The structure felt alive, its corridors twisting and changing as if responding to their presence. They found no signs of life, but they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Every shadow seemed to move. Every sound seemed amplified in the stillness. Finally, they reached what appeared to be the core of the structure. It was a vast chamber, its walls lined with glowing panels that pulsed like a heartbeat. In the center stood a device, unlike anything they had ever seen, a sphere of light, suspended in midair, its surface shifting with impossible patterns. The hacker stepped forward, their hands trembling as they reached for their equipment. This isn't just data, they said, their voice barely above a whisper. This is a key. To what? I don't know. But whatever it unlocks, the Council didn't want anyone to find it. Before anyone could respond, the structure shuddered. Lights flared to life, and a low, resonant hum filled the chamber. The sphere began to spin, its patterns accelerating as if it had been activated. The team froze, their instincts screaming that they had just crossed a line they couldn't uncross. And then, for the first time in millennia, a voice echoed through the structure. It was neither human nor machine, but something in between. It spoke in a language they couldn't understand, but the meaning was clear. Welcome, children of Earth. You were not expected, but you are not unwelcome. The chamber fell silent again, leaving the team staring at the sphere in stunned silence. Whatever they had found, it was far more than they had bargained for. The chamber seemed to hold its breath, the glowing sphere casting shifting shadows across the walls. The team stood motionless, their hearts pounding as they tried to make sense of what had just happened. The voice, neither hostile nor welcoming, lingered in their minds like an unshakable presence. The captain's voice crackled over the comms, breaking the silence. Report. What's happening in there? The hacker hesitated, their eyes fixed on the sphere. It spoke to us. Or something did. It called us children of Earth. I don't think this is just a machine. It's alive, somehow. Before the captain could respond, the sphere shifted again, its light intensifying. The patterns on its surface began to coalesce, forming a map of the galaxy. The team watched in awe as a new set of coordinates appeared, highlighted in a pulsing red. The sphere's voice echoed once more, calm and unwavering. The key is incomplete. Retrieve what was lost. The tactical officer stepped forward cautiously, their hand resting on their weapon. It's giving us instructions. But for what? This feels like a trap. The hacker glanced back at them, their expression torn between fear and curiosity. Maybe, or maybe, It's the reason the council hid this place. They didn't want anyone to find this, or what comes next. The captain's voice cut through again, this time more urgent. You need to move. Sensors are picking up incoming ships, council signatures. We've been found. The tension in the chamber snapped like a wire pulled too tight. The team scrambled, downloading what data they could from the sphere. The hacker worked frantically, their fingers flying over the controls as the others kept watch. The sphere's light flickered, as if responding to the urgency of their actions. As the hacker finished, the ground beneath them shuddered. The structure itself seemed to awaken, its walls glowing faintly as new corridors opened and closed around them. It's protecting us, the hacker whispered, their voice filled with awe and dread. Or it's protecting itself. The team didn't have time to debate. They raced back toward their boarding craft, the corridors shifting and pulsing as if guiding them to safety. The hum of the structure grew louder, vibrating through the air like a heartbeat. By the time they reached the dock, the ship's comms were filled with static, the interference growing stronger with every passing moment. As they launched back toward the main ship, the first signs of the Council's fleet came into view. Massive warships loomed on the horizon, their sleek designs a stark contrast to the ancient structure behind them. The crew knew what was coming. There would be no negotiations, no chance for diplomacy. The Council wasn't here to recover the data. They were here to destroy it, and anyone who stood in their way. On the bridge, the captain barked orders, their voice cutting through the rising panic. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. We're not staying to fight. Get us out of here, now! The ship's engines roared to life, propelling them away from the structure as the Council's ships opened fire. Bolts of energy streaked through the void, barely missing the fleeing vessel. The crew worked in grim silence, their focus absolute. Each second they stayed alive felt like a miracle, but they knew it couldn't last. The structure behind them erupted with light, its surface shimmering as it activated some unseen defense. Beams of energy lashed out at the Council ships, tearing through their shields like paper. The crew watched in stunned silence as the ancient weaponry unleashed its fury, forcing the Council fleet into disarray. But the display of power didn't bring comfort. If anything, it deepened the mystery. The structure wasn't just a relic. It was a force that had lain dormant for millennia, waiting for the right moment to awaken. And now, it had chosen humanity to carry out its purpose. The hacker's voice broke the silence, their tone urgent. We've got the new coordinates. But this doesn't make sense. They're in the heart of Council territory. If we go there, we'll be walking into their strongest defenses. The captain's jaw tightened as they considered the options. Every instinct told them to retreat, to regroup, and plan their next move. But the sphere's message was clear. The key was incomplete. Whatever awaited them at the new location was the next piece of the puzzle, and without it, they had nothing. The tactical officer spoke up, their voice steady despite the chaos. If the Council's guarding it this heavily, it's something they don't want anyone to have. Maybe even something they're afraid of. That's reason enough to see this through. The captain nodded, their decision made. Plot the course. We'll make the jump as soon as we're clear. The ship's navigator worked quickly, entering the new coordinates and preparing for a faster-than-light jump. The Council fleet was regrouping, their weapons charging for another assault. The ancient structure continued to fire, buying the humans precious seconds as they pushed their engines to the limit. Just as the Council's ships closed in, the human vessel disappeared into the void, leaving behind nothing but the echoes of its defiance. When they emerged at their destination, the sight that greeted them was unlike anything they had expected. The coordinates led to a desolate planet, its surface scarred by centuries of conflict. Orbiting above it was a station, its design unmistakably human. It was old, far older than anything the crew had seen before, yet it bore the unmistakable marks of Earth's lost technology. The captains stared at the station, their mind racing. This shouldn't exist. Earth was destroyed. How is this still here? The hacker's voice was barely a whisper. It's not just a station. It's a vault. The ship's sensors scanned the area, revealing massive energy readings emanating from within the station. Whatever was inside, it wasn't dormant. The hacker's face paled as they studied the data. This is what the Council was afraid of. It's not just technology. It's something more. The tactical officer frowned, their instincts on high alert. And if they were afraid of it, we should be too. This might be what we need to fight back, but it could also destroy us. The captain's gaze didn't waver. We've come too far to turn back now. Prepare to dock. Whatever's in there, it's time we found out. As the ship moved toward the station, a faint signal crackled through their comms. It was distorted, fragmented, but unmistakably human. It carried a single word, repeated over and over, warning. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, their resolve shaken but not broken. They didn't know what awaited them inside the vault, but one thing was certain. They were standing on the edge of something far greater than themselves. And once they crossed that threshold, there would be no turning back. The ship drifted toward the ancient station, its exterior a mix of familiar Earth designs and something distinctly alien. The warning signal persisted, fading in and out like a desperate whisper from the past. Every member of the crew was on edge, their focus locked on the looming structure. It didn't make sense. Earth had been obliterated, its people scattered across the stars. How could something like this still exist, untouched and operational? As they approached, the station's lights flickered on, a dull golden glow illuminating its angular hull. The sudden activation startled the crew, and even the captain's steady demeanor faltered for a moment. "It knows we're here," the tactical officer muttered, their hand hovering near their weapon. The docking sequence was tense, every movement calculated and deliberate. The ship latched onto the station with a soft metallic clang, and the crew suited up for the unknown. The hackers' fingers trembled as they secured their gear, their thoughts racing. "This place shouldn't be possible," they murmured. "It's like a ghost, a relic from a world that's gone." The captain didn't respond, their expression unreadable as they led the team into the airlock. The station's interior was a stark contrast to its weathered exterior. The walls were smooth and seamless, glowing faintly with the same golden light. It felt alive, as if the station itself was watching them. The air was cold but breathable, filled with the faint hum of machinery that had endured for centuries. As they moved deeper, they encountered signs of humanity, faded insignias, storage crates marked with Earth's ancient languages, and tools that bore the unmistakable design of human engineering. Yet these traces of the past were interspersed with something far stranger. Symbols and patterns, not unlike those seen in the ancient structure they had just left, adorned the walls and ceilings. It was as though two civilizations had collided here, leaving behind a hybrid creation that defied explanation. The crew's steps echoed in the empty corridors, their tension mounting with every turn. The signal that had greeted them grew louder, more coherent, until it was no longer a wordless warning. A voice emerged, fragmented but distinctly human. "Do not proceed, danger." They are watching. The hacker froze, their eyes wide. That's not just a recording, they whispered. It's live. Someone or something is still here. The captain gestured for silence, their hand raised to signal caution. They pushed forward, their determination unshaken despite the growing unease. The corridors twisted and branched, leading them into a vast chamber at the heart of the station. What they found there stopped them in tracks. In the center of the room stood a massive console, its surface glowing with intricate patterns of light. Hovering above it was another sphere, similar to the one they had encountered before, but larger and more complex. It pulsed with energy, its surface rippling as though alive. Around it, humanoid figures stood motionless, their forms cloaked in shadow. They weren't human, but they bore a resemblance enough to send a chill down the crew's spines. The tactical officer raised their weapon instinctively, but the captain held up a hand. Wait. We don't know what we're dealing with. Before anyone could react, the sphere's light intensified, filling the chamber with a blinding glow. The humanoid figures stirred, their movements unnaturally fluid. The voice returned, no longer fragmented but clear and commanding. You should not be here. Leave or face the consequences. The hacker stepped forward, their voice trembling but defiant. Who are you? What is this place? Why does the council want to destroy it? The figures didn't answer. Instead, the sphere emitted a wave of energy that sent the crew staggering. The air grew heavy, and the walls of the chamber seemed to ripple. The captain shouted for the team to hold their ground, their voice cutting through the rising chaos. As the energy subsided, Sphere spoke again, its tone colder than before. The council fears what they cannot control. They destroyed your world to erase what it carried. But they failed. The key endures, as does the threat. The hacker's eyes widened in realization. The council didn't just destroy Earth because of humanity. They destroyed it because of this. They were hiding something they couldn't risk anyone finding. The sphere pulsed, its light shifting to reveal a new map. This one was far more detailed, showing not just the galaxy, but something beyond it, a network of lines and nodes that seemed to connect every corner of the known universe. At the center was a singular, glowing point, its significance undeniable. This is the source, the sphere intoned. The council seeks to bury it, for they know its power. But it cannot be buried. The key will unlock what has been sealed. The captain's mind raced. The implications were staggering. Whatever this key was, it wasn't just a weapon or a piece of technology. It was something that could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy, something that could either save humanity or destroy it entirely. The chamber began to tremble, the figures stepping forward with deliberate intent. The tactical officer raised their weapon again, their voice tight with fear. Captain, we need to move. Now. The captain hesitated, torn between the need to uncover the truth and the immediate danger. Before they could decide, the sphere emitted another wave of energy, this one more intense. It wasn't an attack, it was a transmission. The crew's comms lit up with activity, a chaotic stream of data flooding their systems. Back on the ship, the navigator's voice crackled through the comms. Captain, we've got a problem. The council fleet just dropped out of hyperspace. They're closing in fast. The captain's decision was made for them. Fall back to the ship, they ordered, their voice firm. We're not ready for this fight. The crew retreated, their footsteps echoing through the corridors as the station's lights dimmed behind them. The sphere's voice followed them, its final words chilling in their simplicity. You have chosen survival, but the choice will come again. As they launched back toward their vessel, the Council fleet loomed on the horizon, their weapons charging. The station's defenses activated, beams of light lashing out to meet the incoming ships. The human crew could only watch as the battle unfolded, the stakes higher than ever. They had uncovered part of the truth, but the cost of that knowledge was only beginning to reveal itself. The ship shook violently as it tore through space, weaving desperately to avoid the Council fleet's barrage. The station behind them was a storm of light and energy, its ancient defenses ripping through the attacking ships. But it wasn't enough. The Council had come prepared, their numbers overwhelming, their weapons calibrated to destroy what they feared most. The crew could feel the weight of their pursuit, an unrelenting force determined to erase every trace of Earth's secrets. On the bridge, the captain stood rigid, their eyes locked on the chaos unfolding on the main screen. The hacker worked furiously at their console, deciphering the flood of data they had pulled from the station. There's more, they muttered, their voice taut with urgency. The key, it's not just a weapon or knowledge. It's a blueprint. A way to restart. The tactical officer glanced over, their tone skeptical. Restart what? Humanity? Civilization? That doesn't help us if we're blown to pieces out here. The hacker shook their head, their hands trembling as they typed. No. Something bigger. The sphere called it the source, the foundation of everything. The Council didn't just destroy Earth to stop us. They destroyed it because it was part of a system. If we unlock the key, we don't just fight back. We change the rules of the galaxy. Before anyone could respond, the ship jolted hard, an energy bolt grazing its hull. Alarms blared, and the navigator called out, their voice strained. Shields are failing. We can't take another hit like that. The captain's jaw tightened as they weighed their options. They had come too far to abandon the mission, but the crew's survival was slipping away with every passing second. Then, as if in answer to their unspoken desperation, a transmission crackled through the comms. It wasn't from the Council or the station, it was something entirely new. The voice was calm, layered with a strange harmonic resonance. Child of Earth, you are not alone. The source awaits you. Follow the path. The coordinates appeared on the navigator's console, glowing with a faint golden light. The captain's gaze flicked to the hacker, who nodded in silent agreement. It was a gamble, but staying meant certain death. Plot the course, the captain ordered, their voice steady despite the chaos. Take us there. The ship surged forward, its engines burning at maximum power as it slipped through the Council's formation. Beams of energy streaked past, but the station's defenses provided just enough cover for their escape. As they jumped to hyperspace, the battle behind them faded into the void, leaving only the echoes of destruction. The crew emerged into a region of space, unlike anything they had ever seen. The stars were faint and scattered, their light distorted as if the fabric of reality itself had been bent. At the center of this emptiness was a vast structure, its surface shimmering with an otherworldly glow. It was massive, dwarfing even the largest Council ships, and its design was unlike anything created by human or alien hands. The hackers stared at the readings, their voice barely audible. This is it. The source. The key wasn't just leading us to a place. It was leading us home. The ship docked with the structure, its systems coming alive as if welcoming an old friend. The crew stepped cautiously into its interior, their every movement accompanied by the low hum of ancient machinery. The walls glowed softly, pulsing in time with their footsteps, guiding them toward the center. When they reached the core, they found themselves in a cavernous chamber filled with light. At its center was another sphere, larger than any they had seen before, its surface a swirling maelstrom of energy and symbols. It radiated a sense of purpose, a presence that felt almost alive. The sphere's voice resonated through the chamber, filling their minds as much as their ears. Earth was not destroyed. It was transformed. Its essence is here, within the source. You are its stewards, its children, and its architects. The council sought to suppress this truth, but the truth cannot be silenced. The tactical officer stepped forward, their voice challenging. If this is so powerful, why didn't it stop them? Why did it let Earth fall? The sphere's light dimmed for a moment, as if reflecting on a long-buried memory. The source does not act. It empowers. The council feared your potential and struck before you could rise. But now, you have the choice. Unlock the key, and the galaxy will change forever. The hacker hesitated, their fingers hovering over the console that had risen from the floor. What does it mean by change it? Are we ready for this? What if the council was right to be afraid? The captain placed a steady hand on their shoulder. Fear is why they destroyed us. Fear is what kept us scattered for millennia. But this is our chance to be more than survivors. To be what we were always meant to be. The hacker nodded, their resolve hardening. They entered the final sequence, their heart pounding as the console flared to life. The sphere's energy surged, filling the chamber with a brilliance that was both overwhelming and serene. But just as the process completed, a shadow fell across the room. One of the humanoid figures from the station appeared, its form more defined, its eyes glowing with a cold, piercing light. "You have made a grave mistake," it said, its voice devoid of emotion. "The source is not your salvation. It is your end." The sphere pulsed one final time, its light enveloping the figure and the crew alike. The chamber dissolved around them, replaced by a vision of the galaxy as it once was thriving, connected, whole. But as the vision unfolded, fractures began to appear, spreading like cracks in glass. The source had the power to rebuild, but also the power to unravel. When the light faded, the crew found themselves back on their ship, the structure behind them collapsing into itself. The council fleet was gone, their pursuit mysteriously halted. But the message was clear. The key had been unlocked, and the galaxy would never be the same. As the ship prepared to leave, the captain looked out at the remnants of the source, their expression a mix of hope and trepidation. They had won, but at a cost they couldn't yet comprehend. Whatever came next, humanity would face it together, armed with the truth and a power that could reshape everything or destroy it all. The remnants of the source vanished into the void, leaving the crew adrift in a silence that felt almost sacred. For a long moment, no one spoke, their minds grappling with the enormity of what had just occurred. The golden glow that had surrounded them was gone, replaced by the cold, familiar blackness of space. The ship's systems hummed softly, a faint reassurance that life continued, even after everything they had witnessed. The captain stood at the helm, their eyes scanning the stars as though searching for answers. The hacker leaned back in their seat, exhausted but unable to stop reviewing the data they had managed to download before the structure collapsed. The tactical officer, usually so quick to voice their opinions, sat quietly, their weapon resting idly by their side. Each of them was processing the moment in their own way, but the weight of what they had unleashed pressed heavily on them all. "Did we do the right thing?" the navigator finally asked, their voice hesitant. "We unlocked the key. But what if the council was right? What if this power is too dangerous?" The captain turned slowly, their expression unreadable. "The council acted out of fear. They destroyed Earth, our history, our people, because they couldn't control what they didn't understand. But fear isn't a reason to stop seeking the truth. Whatever happens next, we face it together. We don't run anymore." The hacker nodded, though their face remained troubled. "The sphere said the source empowers, not acts. That means it's up to us to decide what to do with it. We have to trust that we'll make the right choices." The ship's comms crackled suddenly, breaking the stillness. A familiar voice came through one of their allies from the human outposts scattered across the galaxy. "We picked up a massive energy surge near your location. Are you all right?" "What happened?" The captain hesitated, glancing at the crew before responding. "We found the source," they said simply. "The truth about what the council feared. But it's gone now, at least in the form we found it." There was a long pause on the other end, before their ally spoke again. "Gone? Do you mean destroyed?" "Not destroyed," the captain clarified. "Transformed. It's hard to explain, but it's not something anyone can claim anymore. It's part of us now. Part of humanity." The crew exchanged glances, the weight of that statement sinking in. The captain's words felt both profound and terrifying. They had touched something greater than themselves, something that could reshape the galaxy. And now, it was up to them to carry that responsibility. Over the next few days, the crew returned to familiar space, reaching the outpost where their journey had begun. News of their discovery spread quickly, sparking a wave of hope and uncertainty among the scattered human colonies. People wanted to know what it meant if it meant humanity could rise again, united and stronger than before. But the crew found themselves at a loss for clear answers. The hacker spent hours decoding the remnants of the source's data, piecing together fragments of knowledge that could reshape technology, medicine, and even the understanding of life itself. The tactical officer worked with allies to strengthen defenses, knowing the council wouldn't give up so easily. The captain met with leaders from other colonies, sharing what little they could without revealing too much. Trust was fragile, and the truth, as powerful as it was, had to be handled carefully. Weeks turned into months as humanity began to change. The colonies grew bolder, uniting in ways they never had before. They shared resources, pooled knowledge, and prepared for the inevitable retaliation from the council. But there was something else, a quiet strength that hadn't been there before. People spoke of the source, not as a weapon, but as a reminder of what they had lost and what they could rebuild. When the council finally returned, it wasn't with the overwhelming force they had expected. Their fleet was smaller, their presence less commanding. The captain and their crew stood at the forefront of the negotiations, refusing to back down. The council demanded to know what had happened to the source, their fear palpable. But the captain remained firm. "The source isn't yours to control," they said. "It's not ours either. It's a part of the galaxy now, beyond anyone's reach. But its message is clear. No more destruction. No more fear. We've seen what you're afraid of, and we won't let it define us." The council's representatives were silent, their expressions a mix of anger and resignation. They had underestimated humanity once before, and they couldn't afford to do so again. After a tense standoff, they withdrew, leaving humanity to chart its own path. Years passed, and the changes that had begun with the source only deepened. The colonies flourished, building a network of cooperation that rivaled the Council's influence. Technology advanced rapidly, fueled by the fragments of knowledge the hacker had decoded. Humanity wasn't just surviving anymore, they were thriving. But the memory of the source never faded. The crew often spoke of it in quiet moments, reflecting on the choices they had made and the path they had taken. The captain, in particular, found themselves haunted by the vision of the galaxy they had seen, the fractures and connections, the potential for both creation and destruction. They knew the story wasn't over. The source had given them a chance, but it had also left them with a question: what would they do with it? One day, long after the crew had gone their separate ways, the captain stood on the bridge of a new ship, their gaze fixed on the stars. The galaxy was vast, filled with unknowns and dangers. But it was also filled with possibility, and as they set a course for the next great journey, they carried with them the unshakable belief that humanity's greatest story was still being written.